So the boss level will have a boss that the player must skillfully maneuver around and avoid using the dash ability. The player won't be able to do any damage to this boss, but instead must use the environment hazards that were created to trap the boss, lure the boss into those traps, and deliver damage. And once the boss is defeated, the player is presented with a win condition menu, allowing them to return back to the main menu and to try other levels. So upon entering the level, you kind of trigger this little announcement saying that there's a boss nearby, and as you kind of wander around here a bit, you notice this little crystal here, and you get a little UI indicator telling you how to, kind of communicate with these crystals. So we use the right click to hit it, and it grows, and then after 3 hits, it actually explodes. And then this obviously leads us to this den from where the boss actually is. So as we approach, it actually triggers the event, and now we're battling the boss. So for this boss battle, I really wanted to try and get a feel for how the game operates under like a heightened, tense like gameplay scenario. So we can't damage the boss at all. Not with melee, not with our projectiles, not with our limit break. The limit break will stagger him a bit and indicate that there's damage being done, but his health bar does not go down at all. So we have to lure him to these traps right here that are placed around the level, and that's the only way to actually deal damage to him. So this is pretty much where the level is at right now. We have to do some game balancing to kind of determine how much like the dash ability should cost, how much it should cost the player to use their alternate attack ability to really give that sense of tension and to give the player like a sense of like resource preservation, because like as you're running away you can kind of just barely dodge him as he's like right on your tail, but he still can kind of reach you, which is how I wanted him to be designed. So you can kind of run away, but you still will incur damage as you're running away, and that gives you the time to go from like area to area. But once you finally kill him after a few more hits here, he'll finally fall over and die, and then we can go back to the main menu screen. So as you can see, none of this is costing me any mana or anything like that. Alright, so there we go, we finally toppled over. So after a couple of seconds, so we completed the level. And that's pretty much where the boss level is at right now. Next week, I would like to do a lot more game balancing just to kind of get a sense and feel for how the tension can really build up, but also still be fair enough for the player.
We'll just go right into the arena level. Now, just like the name states, it is an arena level. It is based off of waves. In a second, we'll spawn the first wave. There will be a countdown. After that countdown, the wave will start. It'll give us a few enemies to kill. Once you've killed the enemies, it will start counting down to the next wave. This yellow square right here will let you exit the level if you wanted to. Once we get past the arrows right here, it'll go and start the countdown. And then it'll start spawning the enemies. Now, we have little red spheres at the moment, which are the spawners, where the enemies are coming from. They're random, so we don't know which one is going to spawn the enemies. There is 2 total enemies we can choose, we can end up having. Of course, if you die like I just did, you can restart at the start of it. Now, we haven't done much as far as game balancing yet, so as you notice, as I use my alternate attack, it doesn't use any mana, so it is kind of overpowering at the moment. So by the end of the week, hopefully most of that will be fleshed out. And as you kill the last one in the last wave, it will go ahead and let you into the main menu, completing our win condition. And that's the arena level. I hope y'all enjoyed.
So for the traps level, the player will be introduced to an intro scene showcasing all the traps they will encounter, and some dialogue to help them understand. Once that is over, they will spawn through this area where they can interact with these barrels, which they can destroy or set ablaze. And once they are done being on fire, they will explode, which will damage the player and enemies. And as we continue forward, we get hurt by some ground spikes, which will also damage both the player and the enemies. And then some more dialogue. Barrels can also be used to destroy barricades, which can hide collectibles. There are also certain setups where you can try to time the spikes properly to hurt the enemies. And here are some wall spikes. Some more collectibles. And then if we go over here, if the enemy is following you, you can bring them through this pathway, which will injure the player, but injure their enemy, but let the player trigger the traps. So the goal of this level is to just showcase all these traps and different ways they can be used, either for or against the player. These barrel stacks over here have a destroyable prism, so it should release. And similar to that is this barrel cart. Destroy that, all these barrels fall out, and you set them on fire, and then hopefully if enemies within range, you could hurt them. Oops. Got a little hurt right there. And then these boulder traps trigger when the player runs through it. The last trap is a homing trap, which will follow the player and then detonate. The player can also avoid this trap if they wait maybe 8 seconds or so. It depends on the set time. And then the trap will detonate on itself. So for the final piece, we will face off against these terrifying werewolves who are blocking a piece of cheese that we are trying to get. And then once we beat them and we get this cheese, that's the end of this traps level. There are some bugs, but I would like to iterate more on it within the next week and hopefully fine-tune it.
We'll be moving on to the traversal level. The original intent behind making the traversal level was to utilize the shift ability to cross gaps. Right now, the shift ability is only able to cross gaps if you're holding the mouse button to move the character as well as pressing the shift ability. So, if we think about it from a level design perspective, nav mesh links would do a lot better than having the shift ability be the only way to cross gaps.
I'm Josephine Dolan, and this is the Milestone 1 walkthrough video. My level is the enemy spawner level. In my level, what the player has to do is traverse the terrain and get to the spawners. Once the player breaks the spawners, they will move on to the other spawners, fighting enemies that spawn along the way. The goal of this level is to break all of the spawners, and there are 5 of them, and the player will beat the level. I have quite a few ideas for how to make this level better in the future. There wasn't a ton of time to get all that done, but that's the point of having more than one milestone along the way. It's a little difficult traversing upper areas because the player wants to run down when you click, and also sometimes the player gets stuck on the spawners and kind of glitches out and spins around the spawners. None of those are game-breaking issues, but definitely something that needs to be worked on in later iterations. And as I broke the last spawner, the "You've completed the level" screen popped up, and you can quit to the main menu, where you can hit New Game, Continue, and pick your